Hello and welcome back to another episode of Come Back Stronger. I'm Dana Brooks of the Fasig Brooks Law Firm, and I'm joined with my law partner, Jimmy Fasig.
Hello everybody, super excited today about the guest that we are going to introduce you to.
Yeah.
But before we get started, we do also want to say thank you to everybody who's just tuning in. We have expanded our reach now to Northern Florida, to the Tallahassee area, Southern Georgia. So we're doing, we're all through Jacksonville and Northern Florida, Southern Georgia, and we're really excited to be able to continue to expand the reach of our show because the message is so good. Our show is all about what, Dana?
Coming back stronger, y'all. It's about people who, we wanted to bring these stories to you because they're so uplifting. And this time, especially now, when everybody's just feeling kind of beat down and just wondering how they're going to get their energy up to start end this year strong and then start strong in the beginning of the year. And we want to bring these stories to you. These are people who have overcome adversity like you read about. These are people who you just wonder how they get through every day. And not only do they get through it, they found a way to come back stronger and to help other people. That's what I like. They didn't just stop with turning their lives around. They wanted to help other people do it.
Especially the person that we are going to introduce you to is Maggie Cook.
She is awesome.
Maggie Cook is one of the most impressive people that I have ever met. I think that anybody has ever met. And so this story is just, this story is the kind of story that people need to hear. We hear all day, every day. You hear negative news, and you know, the bad stuff that's happening, a crime here and a crime there. But we hardly ever hear about the great stuff. And this story that we're going to hear today, this is a story that can inspire and really uplift anybody that listens to it.
Yeah, and I'll just give you a little bit. I don't want to ruin too much of it, but she is such a powerful person, and her story is just, it will motivate you. We are not just going to give one segment of the show to it. We're not just going to give one show to it. This is going to be a 4-part series on Maggie Cook. When you see where she came from, her very humble beginnings as an orphan, part of an orphanage, and really having to survive on the street, to what she eventually made for herself and the business she created and sold for multi-million dollars. So I cannot wait to get started. So we'll start with an interview with Maggie when we get back right after this.
We're giving you a game plan on how you can take back control of your life to not just get back to where you were before you started, but also to come back stronger. This is a tragedy in your life, it's an accident, or it's a loss that you never expected to suffer. But every tragedy carries with it the seed of an equal opportunity. And so our job is to guide our clients to take advantage of that opportunity. And that is the most fulfilling thing that I do in my job. When I give my client that settlement check at the end of the day, if they can walk out of there feeling like they are the hero of their own story and they're proud of themselves because they did what I asked them to do, they took my guidance and they ended up with seeing that light at the end of the tunnel and actually reaching that light, that's what it's all about.
And we're back. We're going to hear the first segment about Maggie Cook right now. We're going to start with her childhood and what motivated her to overcome these tremendous obstacles. Take a look.
Maggie Cook, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You have an incredible story. You started out in an orphanage in Mexico, and you killed your own food with your own knife to, eat for you and your brothers and sisters. And then you wound up, coming to the United States, not speaking a word of English, but on an athletic scholarship to the University of Charleston in West Virginia. After that, you became homeless. After that, you wound up developing a salsa recipe that won a contest and ultimately built a multi-million dollar business that you sold to Campbell's Soup for $231 million.
Yes.
And now you're saving children from sex trafficking in Mexico, and you're housing them in Mexico, and you're just doing so many amazing things with your life.
Yes.
I just can't wait to talk to you about all of this. It's so exciting. I think you're probably the most favorite person that I've ever met before and interviewed before, so this is really cool. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start off with your childhood.
Okay.
You grew up in an orphanage.
Yes.
Were you born in the orphanage?
I was born into it. I was born in a hospital in Morelia, about 2 hours away.
Okay.
But I was born into it, yes.
How many kids were in the orphanage with you?
Well, I have 68 brothers and sisters that were adopted. And then at one point, we had over 200 kids that lived there.
Okay.
From ages baby to young adults.
Did you ever try to find your parents, or what was the situation with your parents?
No, our caregivers were my parents.
Okay.
The difficult thing there was that we feel one of the reasons that me and my siblings, I have 8 blood siblings, were so close is because I heard our caregivers speaking one day saying how they were not going to pay attention to us as much, or they were gonna like push us aside because they don't want the other kids to feel less loved. One of the biggest things that I can remember that was probably the most impactful was going up to 2 to 3 weeks with no food. And that was because they would give money from the U.S., from supporters, but he would give all the money away to help other people, help the poor, and we were really left with no food. And honestly, when I was growing up, I remember, killing cows and killing animals to eat, and then we would use the leather to make our shoes or dry it and all that stuff. And so it was just really, that to me was the most challenging, because I don't know if you've ever been hungry for 2 or 3 weeks, but you can't think right.
Right.
You can't perform. And
that was happening because they were getting this money in, but they were giving it to people that they felt like were less fortunate than their own children.
Yes. As a matter of fact, there was a lot of arguments between them too. My mother especially telling them, we have kids here, you need to take care of them first.
Yeah.
That was a big argument that always most common there.
But instead he gave the money away.
Right.
And then you were out killing food on your own?
Yes.
How old were you?
Oh gosh, I think that started when I was 8 or 9.
Wow. And how did you find yourself doing that? How did you actually kill an animal?
So we would wait for the moon to be half full. Because you could barely see, but it was not pitch dark that you couldn't walk through the woods.
Yeah.
And we created these nets that we would use. And back then, they still have them. It's like a battery that was that big with a big spotlight, like a light.
Yeah.
And we took those, and when we would see, we would climb trees. And we learned how to sleep in them, because we would fall off of them. And we would see an animal and we would put the spotlight on it. And what happens is they're stunned,
right?
And then we would throw the net, and then we would jump on it and do the deed. And I remember we would open them up, skin them, and in the river, clean them up, and then just eat them out there. And we did that in the woods because we brought some food once. We got in trouble. So that was really the way that I could feed myself. And my brothers, we were basically wild survivors, fending for ourselves to eat.
And you said that you carved a cave out of the mountainside too, and that's where you stayed?
Yes.
That's amazing.
It was a really interesting cave because nobody knew about it, and it was built on a canyon. You could barely walk on it. You had to go like this, you had to literally be grabbing branches to get to it. And I did it slowly so people wouldn't notice all the dirt. Have you ever seen Shawshank Redemption?
Yeah.
I did little pieces of dirt and I would throw
it like chipping the knife in a little bit at a time. And you brought the knife with you today?
I did, yeah. It's this one right here.
Let me see.
This knife.
So why have you kept this knife for this long?
It's actually, I didn't keep it. He took it away from me.
Your father? Your caregiver?
And he gave it back to me.
Wow.
Years later.
When he found out what you were doing, he took it away from you?
He found out that I was killing animals, so.
But you had to kill them.
Yes.
What did what lesson did you learn from your father giving all that money to people that he thought were less fortunate than his own children?
I learned the lesson of giving, humility, because I saw so much pain in people's, in the sick and the poor. You could tell by the way that they looked, how thin their hair was, what they had for clothes, and their sandals almost worn out. But the biggest downside of that was that I became a giver, and I wasn't giving myself first.
Right, you don't take care of yourself.
Right.
You give to everybody else before yourself. And that, we'll talk about this later, but that's resulted in some hardships in your own life, not taking care of yourself. So when you were a little girl and you were in the cave that you dug with your own hands and your own knife, what were you dreaming about? What did you think that you wanted to be?
So it's interesting because I pictured myself, I saw myself as this super successful woman.
Uh-huh.
And I would see myself with a suit, with high heels, long hair, behind this beautiful mahogany desk. And someone yesterday asked me where I got that from.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask you.
Yeah.
Where did that come from for a little girl?
Yes, because I didn't know anything really outside the barbed wire fence. And we were in the central mountains of Michoacan, away from civilization. And we had 3 movies that we would watch over and over and over again, and they were so boring. But one of them was Old Yellard. I don't know if you know.
Yes.
And the one that I can't even remember the movie of it, but I saw this powerful woman, and she was humble, and she was dressed like I saw, and so I took that image and I had it in my mind, and I just had this hope for, someday, I can be that. If I can see this person doing that, it's possible for me. And it's just something that I kept in my mind and I put there, that I could almost feel like myself as being there.
That image.
That image, yeah.
Even though you didn't know what she did.
No.
But that was going to be your image someday.
Right. She must be doing something that I don't know what she's doing, but yeah.
But I want to look like that. I want to present like that. I want to be humble like that, powerful like that. And you've achieved all those things.
Yes.
Well, when we come back, I want to talk about your journey through college and kind of, starting the company that you started and how that wound up happening.
Sounds great.
Oh, she's so exciting.
Wow.
Thank you for that, Carrie. Jimmy, what were your takeaways from the childhood segment with Maggie?
Oh my gosh, a couple of things. First of all, now I had the opportunity to interview Maggie before the show, and she told me that the big lesson she learned from this childhood was resourcefulness.
Oh yeah.
She learned that if she had to kill her own food, she's going to kill her own food. She's going to do whatever she's got to do. And then the second big takeaway I liked from it was visualizing her future.
100%.
Visualization of our goals is one of the most important things we can do.
Yeah. When I was a little girl, I did that.
Did you?
I would put on my mom's clothes and wear a suit and wear heels, and I would just see myself in that image. So
well, look at you now, man.
Hey.
Look at you've done it. You have absolutely done it.
It worked, y'all. We'll be back right after this for more on Maggie Cook's story. When you come into my firm, you see a lot of faces that look like yours. You see a lot of people that had the same problem before they got to work. A lot of people who left kids with mismatched shoes and a lunch bag, you screaming, just because you had an appointment you had to make. We get you. We get you.
You have to go to a lawyer that will understand your story as a woman. Because women have different stories than men do, and that's just a fact of life. And if you're a woman that's been injured, either through a slip and fall or a trip and fall in an auto accident, you have to go to a lawyer that's going to understand what your daily existence was like before, what it's like now, what the injury means to your entire family, and what you need to do to come back and be where you were before, and even come back and be stronger than where you were before. They just need to have the courage to pick up the phone, because we are going to take the burden of this accident or you being hurt off of your shoulders. We're going to put it on our shoulders, so you don't have to worry about it. Exactly. You can worry about everything else in your life, but not this accident. We're going to worry about that for you.
All right, and we're back. We're going to follow up with the second part of our 4-part interview on Maggie Cook with Carrie Roan right now.
All right, Maggie, so how did you wind up coming to the United States and ultimately becoming an athlete, a student athlete at University of Charleston in West Virginia?
So when I was in junior high, which was the first time that I got to leave the orphanage and go to school outside of the orphanage, I always felt like I was looking for something that was different, something that wasn't soccer, or something different that I would do that would give me my ticket out, to go somewhere, to be someone.
And you were already a very talented soccer player.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that wasn't going to be enough to get you to the United States. Not back when we were growing up, when soccer wasn't as big as it is now.
But I wasn't even thinking United States.
Oh, okay.
I was just thinking something that I can be so talented of, that I could become so good at, that can help me get somewhere.
Okay. Okay.
So I was walking through the school one day, and I passed the what do you call it? The principal's office, and he had a little building, and I noticed that he had a teeny tiny black and white TV that was really long, It was about that big. And I was watching it, and I saw basketball for the first time. And I asked him who was playing, and he said Michael Jordan. And I said, well, every time I have a break, can I come and look at him play? And he said, yeah. So I would be in the window watching him play every time I could, and I learned between the leg movements, behind your back, shoot, you know, free throws, everything.
You taught all that to yourself?
Yes, yes.
Wow.
And so I took that, and I got a basketball somehow.
But you're so tiny. You're 5'2". You're like pocket size.
Yes.
And you're so successful at basketball. How did you overcome that obstacle just of your size playing a big tall person sport?
I didn't think of it as an obstacle for my size. You know, a lot of the Mexican people around me, including my brothers, we were all shorter. So, but the one thing that I did was visualize when I was in the court by myself. You know, I had this blindfold.
Yeah.
And I would blindfold myself, and I would visualize all these multitude of people coming towards me trying to steal the ball. And so what that did was, when I was with one person, or 5 of my brothers doing that, it was a situation where I was easily just getting through them very quickly, making that layup or doing that fadeaway, jump shot. And so if I could do that with my brothers, none of the women were doing that in any situation, in any school district. And so I became so good. We won all the championships in high school, junior high and high school. And I got recruited to play basketball for the Mexican national team because I was so good.
Right.
And I could dribble the ball without looking at it. I could do all these things. I was literally flying by all these girls. I went to Mexico City, and I got interviewed, and I got to play with the team. And they definitely wanted me to come play for them. I got the letter, everything.
Oh, how exciting.
Oh, I was so excited.
Yeah. So how did that all wind up to you playing basketball in the United States when you didn't speak a lick of English?
Yes.
So you come up here to the United States with one of your brothers for his team.
No, actually,
right?
I every year, well, that year, it was about 4 months into the summer, 4 months after I broke my collarbone, and they took a bus with all my 68 siblings.
Oh, wow.
And they took like half of the seats from the middle back so that the rest of the kids could fit. And they started touring the United States to raise funds for the orphanage.
Okay.
And we got invited to a picnic in Charleston. I had no idea. It was just a trip. And so the first thing that happened was the bus came, and he parked it, my dad. And we saw the basketball court. It was like one of those old ones, outdoor, like rusty. And I was looking at my brothers, and we were like...
First thing you want to do is go shoot some hoops?
Right. The bus parked, and we ran out those doors. We didn't even care about the picnic. We ran out, and we just picked up this ball that looked like it was 100 years old and weathered,
Yeah.
And we started dribbling, going back and forth and back and forth. And there happened to be the coach of the University of Charleston. And she saw me play.
Well, good luck.
Because of that opportunity, and I wasn't even thinking about it. It was my passion, basketball.
Yeah.
And so that happened. Just like that,
and
opportunity.
So the coach saw you and wanted you to come play at the university, which is a D2 school.
Yes.
And you got a scholarship.
Yes.
That's huge.
Yeah, it was huge.
And you weren't just there for basketball, though. And this is the cool part. You were there for soccer and rowing also.
Yes.
That's amazing. So then you go through college. Obviously you had to learn English to go. So you complete college and you got a degree in interior design, right?
Yes.
And then you kind of fell in some hard times after that.
Yes.
What happened there?
So when I graduated college, there was only 2 major companies that were interior design firms. And
in West Virginia. Yeah.
And I had graduated with a degree, so I went out looking for jobs, and I wouldn't get hired. They were full, and so I just didn't know what to do. I'm gonna just do what I can. So I started living in my station wagon. I would park in vacant lots at night, and I got called on by police several times. And then one day, I was going through one of the hills in Charleston, and my engine of the car exploded.
Oh, jeez.
And I didn't know anything about cars.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, you know, I just left it.
Yeah.
Now I would have known, like, okay, tow truck, let's try to fix it or something.
Right.
But at that time, I didn't have money.
You were
either.
so young then.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I was so young.
Then I think you started living in the woods after that.
Right.
And what pulled you out of that? How did you get from living in the woods to becoming where you are now?
So one of the cooks of the University of Charleston, and I still have her picture's on my book. As a matter of fact, the university inducted me into their Hall of Fame, and I invited her to sit with me.
Oh, that's this book, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
To spend time with me. So she got me out of there. She gave me a place to stay, and she actually got me a place to stay in the dorms, and it happened so quickly. One of the things that happened to me while I was homeless, I had the biggest realization that I was free. And I think that happens to many of us when we hit the lowest low, because I realized that I really suddenly have nothing to worry about. I have no bills to pay, nobody to, somebody to be accountable for.
No obligations.
No obligations.
Right.
And I just felt like free and one with everything.
That's such an interesting way of looking at it, because I think a lot of people would look at it as my life is over. And it sounds like you were looking at it as my life is beginning.
It was like a clean slate.
That's amazing. Well, when we come back, I want to talk about what you did with that clean slate to get to where you are now, which is your comeback story.
Sounds great.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for that, Carrie. Maggie is
gosh.
just, you know, she had so many breaks, and then bad things would happen again, but she didn't see them as bad things.
I love that part of this
Yeah.
story, because one of the most important messages I like to share is every obstacle, every failure, every setback, every injury, every bad thing that seems to happen to us is always an opportunity for us to reevaluate our lives and to begin again wiser and stronger. And so Maggie got that lesson.
Yeah.
She felt that in her bones, and that really resulted in her being the person that she is today.
Yeah, and I like it because with what we do, we're personal injury lawyers, and we see people like this all the time who come to us thinking it's over for them. You know, there's just, all I'm going to be now is stuck in pain, and I'm just going to have to live with this, and that's just not true. But sometimes you need somebody to give you that viewpoint.
Yes.
You know, Maggie was able to get there on her own, but that's such a great story. We'll talk a little bit more about her and her interesting journey when we get back right after this. This is the most rewarding job. I tell people, anybody knows about me in my past, I was a social worker, and I loved the spirit of the job. I loved the mission, but I felt like I couldn't do as much for them as I wanted to do. You meet your client where they are. You know, you meet them where they are, not where you want them to be, not where you want them to get it together and come into your lovely office and act appropriately. You know, sometimes I have to go to your house so you can be real, so you can show me, so you can break down. I don't mind doing that. That's part of the process. But the more I can do that, the more you do feel better. And like, you can be somebody who can go into any office at any time and maintain your composure, because you were able to be as vulnerable as you needed to be with somebody that you needed to trust to get you through this. And once I do that and I get them on the other side of it, it finally occurs to them, it's like a light bulb goes off. It finally occurs to them that Dana didn't do this. I did this. I got myself here. And we're back. That was a tremendous interview. We've only gotten two segments into this, y'all. There are two more segments about what she does the second half of her life, and then how she's helping other people now. But Jimmy, we talked about her childhood, and this last segment was about college and sports.
Amazing takeaways.
What?
I mean, one of the biggest takeaways that I saw was when she talks about Michael Jordan, and how she decided that she was going to be a great basketball player, and she learned basketball by watching Michael Jordan. What a great lesson.
Yeah.
Because so many people go out there and they want to do something great, and they take their advice from Uncle Joe, who's never done anything great in their lives, or their parents, or, you know, somebody that's never done anything great in their lives. But Maggie Cook decides she's going to become a great basketball player, and she watches the best basketball player in the world. So I always encourage people, if you want to do something great, if you want to do something awesome, get watch somebody, get a mentor,
Yeah.
get somebody who's already done what you want to do, and do what they did, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
No, and they bring up your excellence. You know,
Yes.
whenever they have excellence as their personal standard, they're not going to lower that because of you. They're going to bring you up with them. So I always encourage people, if it's in sport, if it's in business, find someone who's performing at that level you aspire to. Get in their orbit. Find
Yes,
how their energy
100%.
works. You know, and our parents and our coaches from school, or all these people around us who are in our ears, they mean well, but if they've not done what you're aspiring to do, find somebody who has. I mean, it's good to have encouragement, but you know, I love the part about the sports. You know, so many people look at sports as only the path for our males, but there's a lot of women who are getting college paid for, they're going into careers. Maybe if they're not playing professionally, maybe they're in broadcasting, maybe they're in journalism. So don't ever dissuade or discourage your women and girls from pursuing sports, because it was her ticket out.
I loved it. I love the fact, I also love the fact that she's only 5'2".
She didn't realize that.
And she had no idea.
She didn't realize that might matter in basketball.
She had no
'cause in her
idea
world
that
it
she's
didn't.
too short to play basketball. And so and this is great stuff. So in her mind, you know, everybody else around her is short, so she becomes a great basketball player. And then next thing you know, despite the fact that she's 5'2", she gets a scholarship to a very good American basketball school. Is that fascinating?
That's awesome. But here, though, again, what happened after she graduated? She experienced homelessness.
Right.
So, you know, a college degree isn't always that, you know, ticket to you know, a complete, you know,
financial freedom,
or security. But she saw it as liberating, and that allowed her to open her mind and create a life that she had not envisioned. And next time, on our next Come Back Stronger story, you're going to hear the next 2 segments of her amazing story, and you're going to see that being homeless was not a limiting thing for her. It was a liberating thing for her.
It was a liberating thing. It's because her past had put things in perspective for her present. And I can't wait for you to see the next 2 segments when she tells the comeback part of her story. She's going to tell the good part where she succeeded and how she did it. Cannot wait for you to hear those parts.
No, and I want you to follow us, please, on we've got a Facebook group, Come Back Stronger. A more in-depth story of Maggie can be found there, and just follow us online anytime, Facing Brooks.
Facing Brooks, Come Back Stronger, and you can also follow us on the Facing Brooks Facebook page.
That's right. We'll see you next time. Their life has been changed, and this is for real. And so many times it can be a very intimate part of a man's life. You know, something that they don't even want anyone to know they're experiencing, much less do they want to share how it's affecting them. It even feels worse when you don't stand up for yourself. Because you know you can't stand up for yourself among these lawyers and these insurance companies because it's not your area. You don't know. So a lot of times, instead of seeking help, especially maybe from a woman, they just take it, and then that eats on you. You know, people don't lead with their weaknesses, but that doesn't mean they don't exist, and it doesn't mean they don't deserve fair compensation for them whenever those weaknesses and those injuries are caused by somebody else just not paying attention and being careless. That is not your responsibility, it is the careless person's responsibility. And making that person honor their word and honor their commitment to you, that's not weakness at all. That is strength. That is doing the right thing for yourself and for your family, so you can walk with a straight back, and your kids can look up to you and say, that's my daddy, he takes care of us.